But thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to address the board today, and more importantly to give sort of a State of the Union for the Sheriff's Office to the citizens of Clay County and the people who are watching this on television. Today I present to you my 11th budget as your sheriff. With the exception of the first two budgets, the rest have been a painful and dreaded process. As elected officials, we've had the misfortune of presiding over government operations during some of the most difficult economic times in our nation's history. As a matter of necessity, terms like downsizing, doing more with less, and living within our means became part of our daily vocabulary. I submit to you that we have done a yeoman's task of providing excellent government services with declining resources. In order to visually demonstrate just how dramatic the downturn in budgeted resources available over the last few years has been, I've prepared some easy-to-understand graphs. The first graph shows that in the decade preceding my term as sheriff, the budget grew steadily, almost quadrupling from about $10 million to $38 million during that time period. Each year, the budget would increase by $2 to $4 million during those good financial times in our county. In 2005 and 2006, right here, the effects of a growing population demanded increases in the number of personnel, and the budget growth of a couple of $1 million a year continued, as in 2006, when we added an additional 25 deputy sheriffs to our staff. Then, as we all know, the economic meltdown in our country occurred and property values collapsed and the growth stagnated and unemployment set in. Flat budgets and even budget reductions followed in the ensuing years. One thing that didn't stop, however, were the cost increases. Fuel shot up to nearly $4 a gallon before its recent drop in price. Jail medical costs rose dramatically, mainly due to the influx of mental health patients in our jail. In fact, the Clay County Jail is the largest mental health facility in Clay County. Everything from jail food to automobile tires costs more. All the while, through cost-cutting methods, my staff absorbed all of the increases and held the line. We even returned millions of dollars in saved and unspent tax dollars during those tough years due to our frugal efforts. What is most impressive is to realize that this year's budget, 2014-2015, is just under $500,000 less than the sheriff's annual budget 8 years ago, even after absorbing all of those cost increases. Now, I haven't examined the other 66 sheriff's budgets in the state of Florida, but I feel pretty safe in making the statement that I don't believe any sheriff in Florida is operating today with less money than he or she had 8 years ago. Next slide. And the really impressive part is not that the Clay County Sheriff's Office cut costs. The most impressive part is that we did so without major impacts on public safety. The most effective measure of how well a law enforcement agency does its job is the overall rate of crime per 100,000 citizens, and when crime inevitably occurs, how effective we are at solving those crimes. While we all know that crime is down nationwide over the last several years, and the state of Florida's crime rate is the lowest it's been in 44 years, our numbers show that the crime rate in Clay County is even well below the state's average. This green bar here represents Clay County. This bar over here represents the state's average. So even though we're at a historically low period, a low crime rate, Clay County is even below that. And our crime clearance rate, or the rate of solving crimes, is over twice the state's average. Clay County is over on the left. You can see the state's average and our surrounding counties here. We're well below or well above them in our effectiveness in solving crime. These are the result of hard work. As they represent the efforts of competent and dedicated staff, I lead a great group of employees. Those employees producing those low crime rate numbers do so at a lower cost to the citizens of Clay County than comparable sized counties. Again, Clay County is green, showing that our cost per citizen in Clay County is $191 for each citizen, as compared to as much as $307 per citizen for our neighbors in Alachua County. And even our next door neighbors in St. Johns County pay $201 per citizen. I can certainly understand that while the Sheriff's Office has been enduring hard financial times, that we're not alone, and all county employees and other constitutional officers have suffered as well and continue to provide excellent services under trying conditions. As I indicated earlier this year, there were several factors requiring more budgeted funds for the 2015-2016 budget. Two of those factors are beyond my control. The Florida legislature dictates contribution rates for the Florida retirement system, and as you know, my personnel fall within the special risk category, which requires the highest contribution rates. Couple this with an ever-increasing medical care costs for inmates in your jail, these add up to nearly $1 million in increased revenue needs. I'm not requesting any additional personnel this year, or equipment, or operating expense money in my budget request. Remember those great employees that I mentioned that brought in those impressive numbers a few minutes ago? They're in need of our attention as well. While it's true we gave some small salary increases over the last half dozen years, they've fallen way short of keeping pace with the rising consumer price index. And add to that the state's mandated retirement contribution enacted a couple of years ago by the legislature, and it compounds the effects. Last year, it was suggested that a professionally contracted compensation survey be conducted to analyze where our county employees stood in employee compensation. All constitutional officers and the BCC employees were offered the opportunity to participate in a survey for an economy of scale. Cody and Associates just completed the sheriff's portion of the salary survey, with the other constitutional officers expected very soon. The BCC decided not to participate in the study at this time. Cody and Associates shows our staff, on average, is paid about 9% below the market rate of similar-sized counties in their job categories. This is no doubt the reason why I'm bleeding good employees who are leaving government service to take jobs as truck drivers or airplane mechanics. Tens of thousands of dollars spent training each one walks out the door with them, not to mention their valuable experience. The bulk of any pay plan implementation costs are for the sworn deputies, which make up 85% of the total overall cost. Increasingly, we find it almost impossible to hire comparable replacements. We haven't increased the starting pay for deputy sheriffs in Clay County in 7 years since 2008. We're losing the competitive edge for the best candidates for the job. Recently, we just interviewed 20 police academy graduates, out of which only 5, or 1/4, were even considered to continue in the process for further screening. Background investigations, polygraphs, drug tests, psychological testing, and physical abilities testing will typically eliminate some of those remaining 5, making hiring very difficult. Lowering our standards just to find a warm body is not an option. Because we all agree public safety is the primary function of government above all else, I know you will join me in recognizing we must invest in our most precious commodity, our human capital. I'm therefore implementing the recommendations of the Cody Salary Survey in my budget request. I recognize the financial impact attempting to implement the increase in 1 year, so I've elected to spread it over my next 2 budget requests. Trying to spread it over 3 or more years would render the validity of the survey useless, as it would become stale as CPI numbers increase. I don't do this lightly, and I can tell you we've sought out every available efficiency and cost savings measure. Part-time employees without benefits, over 300 unpaid volunteers, outsourcing, privatizing, rebidding contracts, civilianizing sworn duties are all efficiencies that we now utilize. I can't pull any more rabbits out of my hat. These folks need a professional wage reflective of the loyalty that they've demonstrated to this county. Loyalty goes both ways, and it's time for reciprocation. While I'm a strong advocate for public safety employees, including our fire rescue personnel, I hope you can find a way to take care of all county employees who are deserving as well. I hope you will do what's necessary to fund my budget request, because not to not do so will be a first step in the decline in public safety. The quality of life in our county we have come to expect and appreciate will be impacted. Remember the core function of government, public safety, as you go about allocating our tax dollars this summer. Thank you for the opportunity to make a presentation, and I stand available to answer any questions that the board may have.